Right, welcome back to our third hour, I think it is now. So yeah, are there any questions on anything that we have covered before we turn our attention elsewhere? So again, in summary, Autopilot is pretty straightforward. To get the specifics about getting devices delivered directly from Ingram to your customers, go and speak to the good people at Ingram about how to make that possible, what's involved, if there are costs, basically involved. Question from Brendan is, what version is Windows is setting to? It's setting to whatever version of Windows came with the device. So again, if you go into a Windows PC, you can do a reset on that PC, and obviously there are those files for the current version. So whatever the current version is, it will use that as the version it will reset to. So again, it's just taking the files which are on the machine. It's just like a stock standard Windows reset, which you can do on a standalone machine if you want. And then it'll do the Azure AD join and so on. And in this case, because I've selected the user, it will then automatically log that in, set that all up for that user and be good to go. So we won't see, basically, we shouldn't see any prompts at all until we get to the login screen. All right, any other questions out there? Any other questions? Okay, I'll assume that we are good to go. So, like I said, we've covered the majority of the device stuff. So again, you'll find that all in endpoint.microsoft.com. You'll find the devices in there. You'll find the apps in there for MAM. You'll find the endpoint security, which is largely targeted at Windows 10. Baselines and those sort of things. All right. I'll spend a moment just talking about the report. So we can go in here, and once we've got our devices in there, we can get reports on things like, the device compliance, the configurations. We can also get things around the Windows updates, where they sit. We can also look at the Defender for Endpoint reports. If we've set all that sort of stuff, so we go into reports, you'll see that we can get an antivirus agent status or any detected malware. So again, if you push this button, all right, and it will take a moment to go out and generate that report. And then if it's all set up, we will see any of that information listed in there. So more and more of these reports are available to you, again, under the reports option. Again, firewall status. Now, as I mentioned yesterday, there is this endpoint analytics. So the endpoint analytics is aimed at helping you understand and improve the boot time of the individual devices. So this is where you can go in and start customizing and optimizing, is probably a better word, optimizing the boot time of the devices to give the user a better experience. So we can go and look at, our device scores here. So you would see that this one here, the virtual machine that I'm on, you can see only rates of 22, where the other machines, this one here, which is a physical device, is a 97. So again, big difference between a virtual machine and some of the ways that it is in there and configured. All right. You'll see that we have the option to look at startup performance. How long does it take to start up? What's the rating here? You'll see that this is the average time, the core sign in. So there are quite a number of details in that you can go in and start having a look at that. You've also got the ability to do proactive remediations as well. All right, but you'll see it's targeted largely at E3 or E5. So again, we can confirm that, and we can go in and create a script package to go in and remediate any boot issues that we see or slowness. We've also got our recommended software here. Right, so if we go into Windows 10 or later, cloud identity, so we get the idea here, what it's recommending, our reliability. So this will report back to us, if there are application crashes, the speed of loading, performance, all that sort of thing. And we've also got the work from anywhere option here as well. So if we go into Windows, click on the Windows word there. All right, you'll be able to see, the RAM, whether it's got TPM. So this is aimed at a Windows 11 update. So has it got, the TPM chip? Is the operating system up to date? Is the firmware good? and so on. So all of these reports are being sucked in and available here in our report section under here, right? We can also see our users. So again, just the Azure AD users, as you would see in Azure AD. All right, so we also get our access to our groups in there. Okay, so we can go in and create our groups, and then we'll talk about the tenant admin. So this is largely what's known as Azure Privileged Identity Management, PIM, which is the ability to escalate rights on demand. So what we can do in here is we can go in, for example, and look at the roles that I may be assigned, and then I can potentially promote myself to a global administrator. So, for example, in my environment, my production environment, there is only a break glass administrator account. All the others are normal users. If I need to do any admin, I escalate my existing account up to a global administrator to do any work, and then I de-escalate it when I'm finished. So there's no standing admin privileges, which is, again, another security best practice. So if you are using third-party software like backups and mail filters, they're probably logging into your tenant as an administrator, which is a supply chain risk that you need to make sure that you do consider. All right, so if there are no questions on that, let me just see if I can remember the URL. All right, so let me turn our attention to Defender for Endpoint. So Defender is Microsoft's overarching security brand. Inside that, we have Windows Defender, which is largely the client software you see on all versions of Workstation. The first thing to note is that Windows Defender agent is the same on Home as it is on Pro, as it is on Enterprise. There's no difference between the endpoint agent. And if you look at all the studies, all the comparisons, Windows Defender is as good, if not better, than any AV that's currently out there on the market. So it's not bad for a free version of AV and security software you get with every version of Windows for free. Now, what Defender for Endpoint provides is the ability to have those endpoints connected together and communicate into a single portal here in the cloud, known as Defender for Endpoint. So if you have a look here, you'll see that I should have two devices here. While we're talking, let me just power one up here. Make sure that it's on so we can do a bit of testing on it. So you'll see here I've got two devices in here. You'll see that I've got Azure AD joined, so there's no risk in there. Exposure level, operating system, all that sort of standard stuff is reported there. You'll notice that I can also integrate network devices, think things like routers, firewalls, and whatever under the clouds there. All right, now at the top level here, you'll see that if you look at threat analytics, what's happening here is that Microsoft is taking all the signals from all the bad things it sees out there and through third-party partners. It's letting you know of the latest threats that are basically out there, any that are high impact. But importantly, it's also letting you know whether any of these current threats apply to your organization. So any of the machines that have been someone says they can't see the screen. Can people verify that you can see my screen? I'm pretty sure I'm sharing it. It would seem to me, Puneet, that everybody is, that I am sharing the screen. Everybody else seems to be able to see it. So I would suggest you drop out of the meeting and then come back in. So from what I can see, it is being shared. If it's not, let me know. But people seem to see that they can see it. So again, this is telling me importantly that there are 143 current threats out there, and luckily nothing in my environment is impacted by that. All right. So here's the list here, and I can drill into. Let's have a look at this one, which is probably not the best one, but anyway, you'll get the ability to look at this in great detail, and this is really good. There's a whole lot of information in here that Microsoft accumulates, especially around this analyst report. So you'll see here, this goes on and on and on and on. There is so much detail provided in these capabilities built into the console of what's going on. This is pulled from Microsoft and third-party sources as well. So it's a great reference if you want to dig into the specifics. And we've also got the mitigations here, so we can go in to determine, what do we need to do to mitigate this threat if it is a third-party, a 0-day threat here. So again, lots and lots of really good stuff in here. The other one I've got is my overview, my security operations. All right, so you'll see here that this would give me any summary. I'll show you my production tenant, which has real life data, but again, just think this is a demo tenant. Now you'll notice here that this Defender for Endpoint is moving from its dedicated console to the admin center. So let me just open that up and show you where that looks, where that appears now, once you have the license for that. Okay, so let's just close that. So you'll see here is our endpoint security. All right, so our endpoint security appears under here. So here's our device inventory, right, which we were just looking at with our devices, our vulnerability management, all that stuff is now in that area there. But I'll run through it here. It's a little bit more, a bit easier to see. All right, so this will indicate any incidents. So it's important to distinguish from what's known as an event to an incident. So an event could be a failed login. An incident could be a failed login followed by a successful login followed by a PowerShell execution, for example. So I think incident is a grouping of events that would appear to be related to that. And that's really, really powerful because it means that you don't have to spend time looking at events, correlating them, and bringing them together. Okay, the question is, if the client has E3, what do we need to do in order to get Defender? So if you're talking about Microsoft 365 Defender, and again, we've gone back to talking about licensing, which is not what we wanted to have a look at, but if they have Microsoft 365 E3, they will receive the new Defender P1 when it rolls out towards the end of the year. All right, so you've seen I can look at my machines. So if I click on my machines, I can drill into these machines. You'll see that I get device information. I get the ability here to look at their IP address, all that sort of detail. Just minimize that. You'll see that I've got any risk level for that machine, its exposure level, no users are logged on. I can look at the alert. So when an alert does happen, it will list any alerts here. We'll try and generate some of those in a sec. And the timeline. So this shows me when any of the incidents happen. So I can see, okay, that's interesting. There was 3 failed logins, then this happened, then that happened, then this happened. All right, so you can see here that this is the timeline, and these are all good items, obviously. So if we go and click in here, you'll see that this does, again, give us quite detailed information about what actually happened during this one PWA helper setup or whatever. All right, so you can see it's quite extensive in what it tells you, the path, the access, the SHA, the signatures of the file in question. So again, really, really powerful. And if there are any things to worry about, they will be listed here. Security recommendations for this device, which is the one I have powered on, which is good. Okay, so maybe I have out-of-date software. So we'll look at not only Microsoft software, will look at third-party software as well and let you know. We get a software inventory of this device as well. As you can see, as a demo machine, there's not much on it basically at all. Any discovered vulnerabilities on that device and any missing KBs on that device, which is good. It's all up to date. Now, when an incident does occur, we will see this, see it appear in this alerts queue. Again, we'll hopefully be able to generate this in a sec, and we're going to go in and troubleshoot it from there. Now, one of the good things about Defender is this automated investigation. So when an incident does occur, the automation will kick in, it will capture the information, it will save forensic information, it will remediate as best it can or isolate it, or do what it needs to do to mitigate the threat in an automated manner. So really, really powerful what it can actually do for us there. And again, you'll see that you've got an action center because part of it may require that the user or the administrator goes in and has to make a decision. You know, okay, we flagged this suspect file. Basically, you know, what do you want done with it? Do you want it deleted? Do you want it whatever? So okay. So we can go into advanced hunting, which I'll come back. That's querying. We've got the reports here, so we can go in. There won't be anything here. It'll look better on my production tenant. But you'll see you get a nice report here, the alert status. I've got the ability to look at the device health. All right, so we can see the devices and their health there. Now, you'll notice also here we have web protection. So one of the things that Defender for Endpoint includes is a web filtering capability. So you can go in there and pick from a number of categories, you know, pornography, gambling. But again, I'll show you this on the production tenant. You can block those plus your own custom filters if you want to do that. So it includes that web protection, which is really powerful when you think about these machines are not behind a firewall. These machines could be out in a user's home. They could be out on the road. So we've got that capability to do that. We can also look at a report of any vulnerable devices. So they've got 0 days on them or out of date software or whatever. Now we can connect up using our APIs and partner capabilities there. And then we've also got this threat and vulnerability management. So we can go in here, and again, we're talking about these sort of scores. We talked about that before. These are a big thing to give you that nice overall summary of what's going on in your environment, a quick overview to be able to allow you to see. So it's bringing out all those recommendations from all the machines and aggregating it into this one location. We can go in and look at the inventory across our whole environment. So I've got 2 physical machines here that have been onboarded, and they've both got Edge and they're both running Windows 10, unsurprisingly. So pretty boring, but you get the idea here of what it is. So that's our aggregated reports. We've also got the ability to have an evaluation lab here. So 95% of the time, you're not going to see anything. If you find something, it's generally going to be a false positive. So how do you test all this stuff? How do you actually go in and make sure that it actually, you actually see some? And I'll show you the way that I've approached this, but there is a lab environment you can set up. We can also look at the configuration management in here. So talk about device. We talked briefly about attack surface reduction. That's in there. And down here, we have our advanced features, data retention, but the important thing down here is our onboarding. So this is how we onboard our devices. So there are probably 2 major ways to onboard devices. One is to run a script. All right, so you can run a PowerShell script. You can just select that. You can use group policy, but you'll see here that we can also use our endpoint manager. So if we just pop back to our endpoint manager here and we go to endpoint security here, make sure this machine's still working. You'll see down here, I've got this Microsoft Defender for Endpoint policy here. All right, so you'll see that I've set up a connection between it and this portal. So these 2 are connected together now. And I've then gone in and set what I want. You'll notice here that I've also got it for Android and also for iOS. So Endpoint, Defender for Endpoint has an agent for Android and also for iOS, as well as Windows 10, Mac, Linux. I think it's got one for Linux now as well. Yes, it has. So we can then go and push out these settings to our devices as well automatically. So again, nice integration capability built in there between these 2 services, which makes it super handy to go in and do. So the first way generally is a local script. You just run PowerShell, or we push it out with a policy. So once it is onboarded, then the machine should appear in here, and basically we can then monitor anything that goes on there. So let us go back to this machine. All right, so this machine is still spinning up. I will go back here. I now am on the Surface Pro 2 device here. Just let me log into it. And again, it's a physical piece of machinery. And let's see if we can generate some nasties on this device that show up some events here. Okay, so let me see if I can get this to fire off. I'll show you what this is once I've done it. So let me just go in and get it happening. Nice, quick, easy. Where are we? Okay. All right, so I've generated something there, and it has generated a report or an error on the machine. Let us see how quickly that reports in here. So let's just refresh that. It might take a moment or two for that to be reported up. So let's go into the alerts queue here. And let's refresh this page. And if that doesn't work, let me show you my production environment. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to fire up, let me show you something that might be a bit more exciting. So this is the production environment that I have. Now, as I mentioned, if I want to go in and run Cloud App Security, for example, I'm logged in as myself here. So if we go in, you'll see I'm logged in as me. And you'll see that I can't get to it, right? So I don't have these security rights. And that's because I protect my account using privileged identity management. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go into tenant administration, and I'm going to go into privileged identity management, and I'm going to go into the roles. So you'll see here the roles that I've configured as a global admin or a groups administrator. So what I want to do is activate the global administrator for my current account. All right, so I've set this up as a policy, and I'm going to, what's the time now? So let's say maybe 2 hours. I'm going to say for a demo, and then I'm going to activate. So that's going to elevate my login to be a global administrator for the period of time there that I nominated. So a period of 2 hours, allow me to do the admin and stuff that I want to do here. So it'll take a moment for that to work through and then refresh the page, and then we should be able to get to all the admin that we need to on the production tenant. Now, when you use PIM, you can set it up so that approvals go through a third party. So you could set it up so that techs, when they want to access at a global admin level, they have to go through and get your approval or your sign off to do that. So again, that is possible. I've just set it up to be automated, so I don't have to worry about it once I select the option. So you'll see here, I'm a global administrator, and it's active until 5:32, and I can manually deactivate it if I so choose. So let me go in here and bring up the same console for Defender for Endpoint, but bring up the production data here. So you'll see in a minute, it'll allow me straight in. If I go and look at my machines here, you'll see that I have a number of different machines here, a couple of Surface notebooks. I have an old Windows server, which is a storage server like a NAS box. You'll see that I've got a number of Surfaces. I've got an Android. I've got an iPad. My iPad's on there, the iPhone, and also a Windows 365 machine is on here as well. So looking at these, you'll see they're Azure AD joined. Obviously, the Windows server is only workgroup joined. I can't do an Azure AD join on that box. You'll see that there's no risk level here. The exposure level is low. Except for this machine here, you'll notice that it is currently set to medium. So why don't we go in and have a look and see why this is set to medium. So let us minimize that. So you'll see here there are no risks. Let's have a look and see if there are any alerts. All right, so these are alerts that have been generated by the system, and this is an alert, a custom alert that I set up. So basically, you'll notice here that it's, services is spawn service host, which is spawn Solitaire, and you'll see that Solitaire is trying to basically go out to a URL here, ads.api.vungle.com. So I don't know if you've had any experience with Vungle, but I've seen it where it tries to encourage the user, let's say, to deploy, your machine is infected with a virus, click here to download our antivirus software. So I set up this custom indicator to prevent those ads from basically happening. But you'll see here, it's quite detailed in what it's got. I go over here and again, select the status to be resolved. It was a true alert, and I can say that it's definitely malware, and it will update the case for me. You'll see I've got all the details here, the times when it occurs, the alert recommendations, lots and lots of details in here. And then I can view it on the timeline. So you'll see here, that's now going to show me the customized time when this alert happened, plus, what was happening around it. So I get a very good idea of, what was happening. So again, the custom indicator happened here, all right, and it was blocked, all right, and we can see here, what else was happening. So they were playing Solitaire, and that ad was pushed to them via Solitaire. So that's basically what happened. Now, if we have a look at the security recommendations, it says, oh, hello. It's now recommending that the reason that this is now considered a medium level of severity alert is because it needs an update of Chrome. So it's indicated there are 23 updates. So if we have a look at the CVE numbers here, right, so you can see it will give us the 23 CVEs that need to be that refer to this version of Google. So let's go in and select that. Again, you'll see here we get information about that, CVE, which devices are potentially, exposed to that, and again, the recommendations that would need to, be taken there. So you can see that basically needs to have a Google Chrome update. So hang on, let me go in here. So if I open the full recommendation here, all right, so you'll see here that exposed devices and CVEs. And then if I go in here, I think, let's just check. No, it's not that one. So normally one of these ones, which I can't remember where, let's go to remediation options. Okay, so this is going to tell me basically I need to update that version of Chrome on the machine. It won't do it for me, but it let me know, and it can set a task for me to do that. So you'll see here that it lists out the the vulnerability, update Chrome, 23 weaknesses, but it's only on one device, so I'll need to go and take care of that and do the update. Once I do that, the exposure level will drop from medium to low. So let's go in and have a look. What else do I need to do while I'm here? All right, so I need to update Chrome. Edge also needs a bit of an update, it looks like, as well. It's got 17 items that it needs to update. There are a few other minor things here that need to basically be done. All right, you'll notice up the top that I can tag these devices. I can isolate the device. So isolation means that the device will no longer be able to communicate with anything else on the network or on the internet, but Defender for Endpoint will be able to communicate and run tests and isolate and do remediation. So that isolate button will isolate it for normal traffic, but not for Defender traffic. You'll see here I can restrict app execution as well. I can run an AV, I can collect my investigations package if I want for forensics. I can initiate a live response session. So just to show you what that is, let me jump back to my demo tenant and let me go into, okay, so this is the demo one. This is the machine here. So you'll see here that I've run something on that physical machine that's now caused the risk to go high. If I go into my queue here, you'll see that, something's happened on that machine, and those alerts now appear in the console. I need to go and deal with them. So this one here says there was a sensitive memory read. So let me go in and have a look at it, see what is involved here. So it's okay, it was doing this. This LSASS is where the credentials are, right? That's sensitive memory because that's where the credentials are held. Suspicious access. So if we follow through all of this, basically what we'll find is that I've done a dump, an LSSA. So again, if you want to do this for yourself, if you go into Task Manager on any device, go into the details and look for a service called LSASS. Oh, there it is. And if you do a right mouse click on that and select the option to create a dump file, you should not be able to do that. If you can, then that is a bad thing, because then Mimikatz, for example, can run a crack across that dump file for credentials. So in this case, we've picked it up. That's great. Very good. So let me go in here and say, yep, that was definitely a true alert. Let's say that I've resolved that. It was a true alert. In this case, like I say, I'm doing a security test. And you'll see that I can actually assign it to a person as well if I want. Keep all those details. All right, so let's go back to the queue. So what else we've got in here? So again, you'll see a suspicious dump. So this was this dumping of the LSASS. Again, all the details there, low level. If we want, we can have a look in the timeline. So let's go have a look at the timeline here. So this is when the event actually happened. So a little red arrow there indicates is when that dump actually took place. And the blue here is going to show me all the events that happened leading up to that. So if I go down to the bottom here, this is, again, the beginning of that process. Okay, and then it will lead up, I think, up to the top here, where it will actually be where the dump took place. All right, so again, very, very, comprehensive information there. But what I'm going to do, and hopefully this will work. I can't show live. So generally what I can do here, maybe is the machine asleep? No. So what I can do here is basically get a command prompt access to that machine. So if I could, do that, let's go back to my production environment, see if I can jump across to another machine I have here. No, that's not the right one. Where's the browser session that I want? Probably this one. There we go. So if I look at my machines, my Surface Pro 6 is sitting over here as my backup machine. Let's make sure that it's awake. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up and select to initiate a live response session. So what this is going to do, all things being equal, it's going to effectively open a command prompt on that device, unseen by the device or unseen by the interface or the user. And in here, again, I'm going to be able to do, I'm going to be able to go in here and do, directories, listings, PowerShell commands, grab memory dumps, do all that sort of stuff. You'll see here that I've also got the ability to get a list of the commands that I've run during that session. All right, so you can see all the information here. So I'm going to do a lot of the troubleshooting that I need to, grabbing files, looking at registries, doing all that sort of stuff without anyone on that machine knowing what's going on. So again, really, really powerful, and that's built in. There's nothing extra that you need. That is facilitated by the Defender and for Endpoint agent, basically being on that device. All right, so that's the a queue there. All right, so we can go in and resolve those as we've seen. These are my automated investigations. Let's have a look here. Let me change the, let's go and change my filter here. And let's change the status to, oh, I can't, there's nothing I can do. All right, I can't view any of the previous ones, which is a bit of a pain. That's fine. Let me have a look at threat protection here. I think I'm going to have a nice clean environment. Okay, so there you can see what's happened and transpired over time. So let's drill into all of those. Let's go in and have a look at our web protection. Let's see what people have been doing. All right, so you can see the attempts to go to malicious URLs, what's happened, how it's been blocked. So for example, if I go to www.gambling.com, so again, this content basically will be blocked. So, and that will be registered in here for my content filtering. So again, all of that is built in. And if I have a look at my list of vulnerable devices, all right, so this is going to relate to largely those Chrome updates that I need to do. Okay, so if I come down here, I look at my dashboard for my threat and vulnerability You'll see here that I'm 31 of 100, the lower the better there. My score for devices for protection is 80%. It will be nice to be higher, but pretty good at this stage, and there is some exposure there. So I need to, when that Chrome is updated on that machine, then that will obviously fall down. Now you'll see over here, I've got my recommendations. What do I need to do? So I need to go and update Edge, do some updates on Windows, and a few other bits and pieces over here. So a really handy little option for me to go in and have a look at here. My evaluation lab, as I mentioned, and my configuration, and then again go in here and do my settings. So what I can do in here is, this is where I can set up my custom indicators. So the custom indicators can be file hashes. So if there's a known bad malware out there and it's file hash, or someone's reported as the file hash, then you can put that and import that in here. You can also put in IP addresses in there as well, and you can also put in URL. So in here you'll find that good old Vungle is one that in there. I put in Kaseya for the the recent supply chain attack in there to make sure it wasn't going through. So you can see here that you can go in and customize these as needed, and you can also do that for certificates if you want to get down to that sort of level. So extremely powerful in what it can do. All right, so let's go back to security operations. Okay, there's a question here from Bill. How do you get into admin portals for Security Center and Azure if you are not already a global admin? Not quite sure what you're asking there. So I use privilege identity management to escalate the privileges for the current user. Right, so I escalated the user that I am at the moment, and if I deactivate that, then that will remove that capability, and I'll no longer be able to get into these admin portals. So I assume that's the question you're asking. But again, if you haven't seen what privilege identity management does, PIM, then I would go and basically, investigate that. All right, so that's what it looks like, in a production environment with data. Generally, it's very clean, but you get an idea of what the data looks like. So you'll see here that we've created, and you see now it's dropped back to medium because I've closed one of those alerts. So we go into the machine here, minimize that. So you'll see here, this one's resolved, this one's low, this one's medium. So if I go into this one here and go in and say, yep, that was a true alert, and the status is now resolved, and the security test, I won't worry about assigning it to, that will now obviously update that. That alert will now, again, disappear. I can go in here and change the filtering to view, anything that was new or resolved. So if I want to see the resolved, I just select that and they'll all reappear again. Okay, and what I can do here is this risk level I can tie to something called, I can tie it to conditional access. If I go to portal.azure.com and we have a look at conditional access. So we talked about how your compliance can filter or work with conditional access. So if we go in here and create a new conditional access policy, and I think it's in conditions, and here's our sign-in risk here and our user risk. All right, so this is where we can go in and work this high, medium, low. So what we can do is we can say, okay, if the device, right, is at a high risk, okay, so the device that I've got here was happily working and it's got some sort of malware on it, that's then pushed its risk level up to high. If that is set at high or gets to high, then conditional access, I can have policies with conditional access that prevent that machine from now accessing corporate information. And these conditional access policies can be evaluated constantly. So they can be constantly evaluated. So as soon as it goes to high, basically all the access to all the data is then prevented or blocked until that device's risk falls below high, which means someone has to go into Defender for Endpoint and deal with the alert, clean it up, do whatever they need to do to get that level back to being under high, so that then that machine can access the data and do what it needs to do. So This is one of the benefits of the integration of these sort of environments together here. We're going to get those capabilities all built in and easily integrated and working with each other. So we've got our device management, we've got our compliance done with Endpoint Manager. Now our low-level device security monitoring, XDR, EDR, all that sort of stuff is done with Defender for Endpoint. Now the Defender for Endpoint has an agent that we install, as I showed you, on those machines, and that is going to allow me to do monitoring, but it's also going to be feeding in various signals back into things like Cloud App Security. So that simple agent is going to work like a web proxy. It is going to allow you to pull logging information into a central location. It's going to allow you to push out changes, updates, fixes, security-wise to that endpoint. So the big benefit of using Defender for Endpoint is that you get far more than just the normal scanning style technologies. You get this behavioral capability, this constant monitoring, so that if there are any issues, as you saw, we can drill into what was happening at exactly that time and place, and we get a vast amount of information. We can package that up for further forensics. We can isolate the machine. We can do all sorts of other things on there. So an extremely powerful capability. So again, popping back to this machine, which is autopilot reset, you'll see now it's now running through this setup process. I haven't been asked for any input yet, so it's again setting up its device preparation. It's going to do the setup and the account setup up to that. So again, still happily chewing away there in the background. So we'll leave that to continue on. So the idea here, like I said, is that what's happened is that Defender for Endpoint for many years was Defender for ATP, Advanced Threat Protection. They rebadged it under the Defender for Endpoint, and now they're splitting it into a P1 and a P2 plan, with P1 largely having the basics, but not some of the automation and more advanced AI capabilities. We expect the P1 SKU to be around probably $4-ish when it becomes available shortly. And I would suggest to you that's a fantastic add-on to Microsoft 365 Business Premium. Now, if you do have Microsoft 365 E3, that will include the P1 SKU, and E5 will always get, as it has, the P2. So I have E5 in my environment. I got the full P2 version. So there will be a standalone P1 SKU you can buy for a couple of bucks and add it on to Business Premium. 100% recommend that you do that. If you have E3, Microsoft 365 E3, you will get P1, and E5 will have and always get P2. So that's sort of how it's going to roll out. You can go and sign up now for I think it's a 90-day trial of Defender P1. So you can implement P1 in your environment now for 90 days, get a play with it, see how it goes. My recommendation, once again, is going to be that you do that in your own environment to get a feel for it, get an understanding, see what it does, how it compares. I've used it for quite a long period of time. Swear by it. I think it's the best there is on the market. The integration with things like Cloud App Security and some of the other stuff I'll show you in the next session, to me is the winner. It's just the integration, even is beyond anything else that is out there. That is the real power and capability of it, and just the ability to drill into this sort of information and the web filtering and the remote sessions, everything that we've seen here. I haven't seen anything else on the market that comes anywhere close. And if you have a look at the Gartner Magic Quadrants and all those corporate evaluations, Microsoft stuff is in the top right-hand corner with the leaders and all that sort of stuff. So yes, it is definitely one of the best products, if not the best product on the market out there. I would strongly encourage you to go and evaluate it. Again, I think you've got a 90-day trial, go and play with it. But when it comes out, I think Microsoft 365 Business Premium is the go-to SKU, and then I will be adding the the Defender for Endpoint P1 as the security solution on top of that. And you're going to get all that nice integration. You're going to get this capability built into where's the console, built into that integrated console that is inside the Microsoft 365 environment. So you're going to be able to see your secure score. You're going to be able to see your endpoint security, your email security. All of that is going to report in there. Your secure score is going to also incorporate Defender for Endpoint scoring. So to me, the integration is what wins it alone. So certainly highly recommend that. Okay, so the question, my device is showing up as registered in Azure. How do I make sure it is joined? So as I mentioned yesterday, the difference is a registered device is a device that has a local login. So what it means is if you have a registered device, you're logging into that device with a local account. If you don't want to do that, you need to log into the device with your Azure AD account directly. So registered devices mean that there is a local account in play on that device. And again, they're typically what gets exploited. My advice to you is to eliminate the local accounts if you're going to be using Azure AD directly. So that's all registered devices means. Get rid of the local account or don't log in as a local account, and then you'll be Azure AD joined. So it's really as simple as that. All right, any other questions before we look at taking a break? All right, as always, I will ask you to just give us a thumbs up. Good to go. Let me know that we're all happy to take a break. Happy to answer any questions that you may have. Don't see any coming through. All right, so let me stop the recording.